A young captain seizes power in Burkina Faso, and suddenly, crowds hail him as a hero. But not just any hero. Ibrahim, leader of a military coup, has become the face of anti-Western resistance in Africa. Who is this man? And why is his rise changing the geopolitical game on the continent? Get ready to meet the leader who challenges the world order. Thousands of civilians killed, millions displaced, and a sense that the state was losing control. It was in this scenario of desperation and frustration that then, just 34 years old, emerged. He didn't promise immediate democracy, but rather security and a new approach to fighting terrorism. The sudden fall path to power Ibrahim was not a well-known name. Until September 2022. A captain in the Burkina Faso army. He led the country's second military coup in less than a year, overthrowing Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, who had himself taken power in January. And security support without the same demands for human rights or democratic reforms that come from the West. The Russian presence, through groups like Wagner, is seen by many as a pragmatic alternative to Western partnership. This sentiment is not exclusive to Burkina Faso. It echoes across much of Africa, where the perception of interference, exploitation, and that Burkina Faso needs its own, more aggressive strategy adapted to local realities, even if it involves arming civilian volunteers. Use rhetoric that resonates with Pan-African ideals, calling for greater autonomy and a more central role for Africa in global affairs. The image of young and combative, contrasting with more traditional, Western-aligned African leaders, reinforced his position as a symbol of the new Africa. And the ineffectiveness of Western policies has been growing for years. Burkina Faso faces insurgencies from groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, which control vast areas of the territory and threaten the capital. Justification for the coup was clear: the previous government's failure to contain the jihadist insurgency plaguing Burkina Faso and much of the Sahel. The country, once a bastion of peace, had become the epicenter of extremist violence in West Africa. His rise was swift and, for many, surprising. While there are reports of some victories, jihadist groups are adaptable and violence persists. Promise of security is still being tested in an extremely complex and brutal environment. From a little-known officer, he transformed into interim head of state. The expulsion of French troops and the termination of military agreements marked the end of an era. His anti-Western sovereignist rhetoric quickly catapulted him to stardom among segments of the African population and on global platforms. While controversial, his tactic aims to expand the reach and combat strength against jihadists. Its sanctions and threats of intervention have been largely ignored, demonstrating the fragility of regional institutions in the face of this new wave of military nationalism. This included the expulsion of French forces from the country, a symbolic and significant step. Ibrahim, the coup leader who became an anti-Western hero, embodies this new era, where African powers seek to redefine their own terms of global engagement. His story is a reminder that geopolitics is fluid, and that the next wave of leadership may come from where least expected. Challenging established orders and rewriting the future of entire continents, this Russian presence offers an alternative for military leaders seeking support without Western conditions, but also raises concerns about instability and human rights violations. Let me know in the comments. In Niger, with a mutual defense pact, indicates a new geopolitical bloc seeking greater autonomy and regional cooperation away from Western influence. The anti-Western promise responds to a widespread sentiment. What truly distinguishes Ibrahim and explains his popularity is his openly anti-Western stance, especially towards France, the former colonial power. Capitalize on this dissatisfaction, promising full sovereignty. The demand for Burkina Faso to make its own decisions, free from the tutelage of Paris or Washington. New partnerships, the search for new allies, such as Russia, who offer military fighting terrorism with own means. The idea that Western tactics against jihadism have been ineffective. Pan-African discourse and other coup leaders in the region. This message found fertile ground on a continent tired of being seen as merely a recipient of aid or a stage 4 conflicts managed by external powers. Tactics on the ground. The jihadist challenge, despite the political rhetoric, the main test for Ibrahim is the fight against jihadist groups. Strategy has been multifaceted. Civilian mobilization. The government has encouraged and armed thousands of volunteers for the defense of the homeland. Ordinary citizens who receive training and support from the army to defend their communities. Military re-equipping. With Russia's support, there is an effort to acquire new military equipment and modernize the armed forces, seeking more firepower and response capability. Offensive operations. The army has conducted more frequent and coordinated offensive operations against jihadist strongholds, with reports of some successes but also of major challenges. Combating disinformation. The government also tries to control the internal narrative, combating what it considers disinformation and promoting a nationalist and unified vision. However, the security situation remains volatile. Geopolitical implications. A domino effect in Africa. The rise of and Burkina Faso's anti-Western stance are not isolated events. They are part of a larger trend that is reshaping the geopolitics of West Africa and the Sahel. End of French hegemony. Burkina Faso, along with Mali and Niger, represents a significant blow to French influence in the region, which for decades was the dominant power. Rise of Russian influence. Russia, through its security companies and arms deals, is filling the vacuum left by the West. Challenges for ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West. African states has struggled to deal with military coups in the region. Potential for contagion. The perceived success of another coup leaders could inspire other military personnel in neighboring countries to try to overthrow their own governments, creating a cascade of instability. Alliance reconfiguration. The formation of an alliance of Sahel states between Mali, Burkina Faso. What is happening in Burkina Faso is a microcosm of a seismic shift in Africa. Do you believe the rise of leaders like is a sign of true African independence, or merely a change of partners without significant changes for the people?